Premier League football is back and Manchester United will welcome Arsenal for a blockbuster on the opening weekend. We're dissecting as much of that fixture as is humanly possible alongside the growing harmony in Carrington. We're also looking at the pursuit of Carlos Baleba and what we know about that one today, your questions and much more. It's all coming up on the latest episode of the Theatre of Red. So, ladies and gentlemen, as of 8 p.m. on Friday evening, competitive football returns to the Premier League. As we're all aware, Manchester United will have to wait a little longer ahead of a Sunday evening meeting with Mikel Arteta's title-chasing Arsenal, who will be sporting a new-look frontman, one who is rather familiar to Mr. Ruben Amorim. Now, despite being the opening game of the season, the result has the potential to shape the fortunes of the upcoming campaign for both sides ahead of what promises to be another highly charged season of antics. The number of narratives at play is astonishing here, and we haven't even witnessed a ball being kicked in anger yet. But that's why we get ourselves all worked up for the brilliance of the opening weekend, because absolutely anything is possible for any team and any set of supporters. Now, we've plenty to discuss today, including the team, the ongoing pursuit of Brighton's Carlos Baleba, or the lack of, and as many of your questions as I have time to dig into. Before we get started, how are you doing on this ridiculously warm afternoon? I, for one, am struggling to keep up with the humidity. I'm not built for any of this. It is very much a struggle, people. A very, very real one. But it does make the allure of a cold beverage rather tempting in the evenings. And I reckon you and me are all entitled to that much after a long week. Given this is a podcast about a wonderful football team, it seems somewhat necessary that we begin by discussing football this week. What do you think? My God, the 21st of May, it feels like a very long time ago. But at the same time, the episodes have gone by in a flash. And as you are all too aware, I am eternally grateful for your continued support throughout pre-season. I have done my best to keep the chats entertaining along the way. Where do we get started? After a 15th place Premier League finish and the most disappointing of endings against Spurs in the Europa League, an Ineos-backed Ruben Amorim received the full support of an ambitious sporting hierarchy during the summer. As you know, we saw the arrival of Diego Leon, Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo, and of course, Benjamin Sesko bolstering the former sporting man's options, with a revamped attacking line now tasked with eradicating the memories of a 44-goal campaign. It's fair to say that on paper, a wounded fan base has received the most necessary of injections with this. For me, having spent time monitoring the squad in recent weeks, the sense of camaraderie within the group is the most beneficial sight, with a collection of footballers who, by and large, genuinely appear to have bonded. Now, whether that is through time spent playing FIFA or pool or eating together, you can tell that these lads like one another. Obviously, like any organization, there will be small sections or cliques, if you will. And that comes hand in hand with everything from your age to your likes and dislikes. But what we see now is the byproduct of a cultural reset that's set about stamping out toxicity within the dressing room and the football club. For me, the age-old adage about taking care of your employees to ensure better service is the simplest of business ethics for any walk of life. You see a Carrington that has been brought to modern day and beyond with a plethora of industry-leading attributes to not only entice players to the club to maintain a standard that will inevitably bolster performances in the field. With respect to any other club, this is Manchester United we're speaking about, and it should have the best of everything. As a fan base, we're all aware of the staff meeting at the training ground ahead of a critical campaign. This is a meeting that saw Omar Barada and Ruben Amorim address the team and staff as a collective unit to embrace unity, address objectives and expectations, while harnessing a sense of focusing on how we move forward together while utilizing harsh lessons learned to maximize output towards success. Understandably, this is a football club that has dealt with adversity throughout its history, and like many of the great men, women, and teams of the past, The message about rising up and beyond was delivered front and centre. Now, having spent ample years working in business before I transitioned into journalism later in my life, I'm well versed in the necessity to have everybody working off of the same sheet. So, having witnessed this internal turmoil that staff have endured under the Glazer regime, it was refreshing to see some form of cohesion at play. As is common knowledge to any regular reader of the content that we churn out on the Theatre of Red website or across our socials, or any listener to the weekly podcasts, I am fortunate enough to spend time with trusted individuals in and around Carrington. And this allows us to supply relevant information to you all. Having sat and chatted with one such source in the past few hours, I'm advised of a feel-good factor running throughout the entire club ahead of Sunday, with this confidence that is exuding from a young and talented squad that feels that there is ample opportunity to upset more than a handful of begrudgers this season. And predominantly, everybody appears to adore Amram. And this is one thing that's been stated to me time and time again. Everybody is determined to aid his push towards perennial success in the Northwest. We haven't seen or heard that for quite some time. By and large, this sense of morale appears to have fueled a large contingent of the supporter base, as we're now aware that the 1958 opted to postpone their planned protest following the feedback received from the requested surveys. Naturally, this ties back into what I referenced at the beginning of the show, with pre-season generating the most obvious of possibilities. But for once, it does appear as though Manchester United are acting like a fraction of the sporting institution that they should be, with the byproduct of this likely resulting in increased points and a far superior domestic standing. I'm sure you'll agree, listening today, the memories of Bilbao still remain, and they offer a humbling reminder of how far this football club has fallen. But following a pre-season that offered more highs than lows by and large, there is a glimmer of sparkle to carry into this season. And when you take a step back and you assess the incomings that Amram has received against the balance of his squad for his 3-4-2-1 philosophy, we see a hugely talented backline ahead of a somewhat worrying goalkeeper, with a hugely talented attacking section ahead of a midfield pairing that for many lacks the balance and the fundamental qualities to supply reassurance for the forwards and the rest of the team. Take pre-season. You have a largely unimpressive outing against Leeds, which was followed by a good showing in a 2-1 win against West Ham. And then we had a superior showing in a 4-1 victory against Bournemouth before slightly more humbling affairs against Everton and Fiorentina, albeit the side remained undefeated through all. There were times when you could see much of the frailties of last season on show, but then there were times when you witnessed a well-coached group playing some beautiful attacking football. And that was the biggest takeaway for me. They looked coached. They look like they understand what is going on. When you look at the concerning factors, set pieces have obviously been concerning for quite some time. And that was on show once more. There were questionable errors leading to unnecessary goals conceded. But I would rather get those out of the way during the summer and learn from tactical or positional queries afterwards. You have to remember, the likes of Arsenal shipped 6 during the summer and endured defeats to Spurs and Villarreal, while Liverpool lost to Milan, and then obviously more recently in the Community Shield against Crystal Palace. And you can take from that what you will. So, with Arsenal arriving at Old Trafford on Sunday evening, we welcome a side who have recruited impressively. They've brought in Zubimendi to partner Declan Rice. And then we have the inevitable narrative of Victor Gyökeres declining the opportunity to rekindle his relationship with Amram and pursue this London chapter. I mentioned narratives at the start of the show, as if that wasn't enough. You have a potential debut for Sesko against the side he was pursued by for a huge portion of the summer, highlighted more by revelations that Arteta would have preferred the Slovenian over his Scandinavian striker. You can say what you will about the fortunes of these sides in previous seasons, but United have only lost twice in their last 18 Premier League home fixtures against the Gunners, although both of those have come in the previous 5 meetings. Since the fixture list was announced in June, it's common knowledge that United have a pretty intense opening 5, with Fulham, Burnley, City and Chelsea to follow. But I have had a feeling in the back of my mind that United will have Arsenal's number on Sunday. You can call me naive, But I view this fixture as potentially defining for a successful campaign for both sides. When considering Amram and the requirement to start fast, I feel that the opening exchanges will tell a lot about his mindset towards the Premier League calendar. A win against a side that many have suggested will again challenge for an elusive trophy would add to the positive vibes in Manchester, and it would help to build momentum between club and supporter. And furthermore, I can't help but feel it would supply a much needed injection of belief and confidence into the squad, albeit our forward line is not carrying any of the wounds of last season. Now, Cian Dempsey from Belfast has got in touch. He sent an email through to editor at theatre-of-red.com regarding the fixture and has been extremely kind with his words, I must say, Cian, none of which I'm going to bore you with. But he asks, given that we have come through pre-season generally unscathed and the importance of starting the season strong, how do I view the first starting 11 of the season shaping up? Will we see any surprise inclusions? And what about the new big man up top? So thank you for taking the time, Cian. It's great to hear from you. This is something that I've gone back and forth about for the last week. And it's not the question, but the prospect of what we may or may not see. I recall some time ago reading a tweet from an individual who suggested that Diogo Dalot may get the nod over Ahmad as the right wing back on the opening day. And many felt compelled to tell the man that he was wrong. Personally, I feel if you're attempting to build a sense of self in the opening days, you want to embrace the exciting attacking elements of youth in your squad. Many people will know this, including a rather strange individual who has periodically messaged me for the better part of 3 years to abuse me about Dalot, believe that if you will. But I do like the Portuguese fullback. Yes, he is complacent at times, but his ball playing is largely good, and we saw the levels of technical ability that he does possess when Ten Hag used him as an inverted midfielder. The more I think about the lineup, I feel that it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he does get the nod over Ahmad, simply because of his experience, physicality, engine, and his desire to maraud up and down the field. Now, don't get me wrong here, though. I would start Ahmad simply because I believe he always puts in a shift. His attacking prowess is far greater, especially when cutting in on his left foot, while somebody like Mbeumo could move right to open space. And let's not forget, he has the capability to win any game with a moment of magic. When you weigh up the pros and cons, and even though he could come off the bench hypothetically to win it, I would want his morale to be as high as possible from the off. And that comes from starting him, in my opinion. In terms of how I feel that the team lines out, I'll go Onana in goals because I think he's fit enough. And from what I'm hearing on the ground, Amram is moving towards starting him. A back three of Yaro, who has been superb during pre-season. I would go De Ligt over Maguire because I think he's a splendid defender who can also progress into the double pivot ahead of him. And I think Luke Shaw comes in as a left-sided central option, given his current fitness and the experience that he adds. I'd be surprised if he went for Heaven and Yaro from the start. But I would go for Ahmad and Patrick Dorgu as the fullbacks, with Dorgu to continue his stellar pre-season form and Ahmad to prove influential on the day. But as I've said, I wouldn't be surprised if Dalot started on the right. In midfield, I would go for the duo of Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro, with Cunha and Mbeumo in the 10s and Sesko leading the line. I think despite his lack of pre-season with the club, Amram has confirmed that he's fit and able and has drawn note to his physicality and the necessity for this in the Premier League. So I do expect him to come in from the start because it will also give Old Trafford a serious boost ahead of kickoff to act as a 12th man. And I want to address something on our new striker because a few people have touched base with me for my opinion, and I believe some think that I'm actually against him. I must assure you I am not. What I am is I'm pragmatic just by nature, but I'm pragmatic about his situation and the beast that he is entering. Yes, he is far more experienced than Rasmus Højlund was when he entered the club. He offers a bigger physical presence, but it is fair to say that he will rely on the support of his domestically proven teammates in attack during a transition that has claimed the Premier League careers of so many stars of the German game previously. Make no mistake, he is not the finished article, and there are many attributes of his game that require fine-tuning. Saying this is not downing the player, though. It is acknowledging reality and also attempting to soften any potential blow for an expectant fan base, many of whom, may I add, do not digest the Bundesliga as I do, and there is many of a juvenile portion that rely on the likes of YouTube for their opinions. Unlike Rasmus, he has a supporting cast though, and that should make his integration far easier. And I do think that the physicality, while excessively different, will be something that the player will relish. I have been an admirer of Sesko for years, and I believe that his ceiling is amongst the highest in Europe. Truthfully, I hope he hits the winner on Sunday, because that's going to boost his confidence in moving forward massively. I do believe that he is primed for success in Manchester. I just want people to appreciate that he has much to learn and allow that during his integration period. When looking down the barrel of a domineering Arsenal backline, he will have to respond quickly, and I will be the first to stand and applaud his every effort.
First of all, we have more than 3, so they are fighting for the places. I'm really happy. I think he has a great potential in everything he does. He can play different type of footballs. He's going to feel that Premier League is really aggressive. He's going to learn, but he has a great potential, and I can see Ben be a striker for Manchester United for a longer years. That's why we pay so much money to have a striker that will have his history in our club. We didn't have a lot of time, but he's ready. First of all, physically he's ready. That is a big component in our league. Then he's really smart. Every detail that he asks is a guy that is always thinking. He spent all afternoon here working on his fitness, so he's ready to play. We'll see if he's going to start.
Naturally, there has been much made about the prospect of further acquisitions, with the future of Carlos Baleba one of the hottest topics in football. As we've stated for over a week now, this is a move like Sesko that is viewed as one for the here and now, as well as the future of this team. We have explored his suitability for United midfield, and the talent and potential that he offers is truly tantalising. You have to take your hat off to Brighton for this innate ability to recruit and turn over such calibre of talent in the manner that they do. But I feel that it is necessary to finalise some points here. I tweeted yesterday that while the player and United want a deal this summer, Brighton prefer to hold the midfielder for at least another year. Now, we know that every player has a price, but Brighton are under no pressure to sell him because the player is happy to stay there, albeit his head has clearly been turned by the approach, as you would expect for any young player who is given the opportunity to play for Manchester United at this stage of a rebuild, because it's exciting. However, as I stated yesterday, United officials understand that a deal is difficult to complete, and although some believe it may be impossible this summer, there has always been the viewpoint of establishing criteria and getting legwork done early ahead of a future deal. Now, some chose to rebuff this yesterday, and we have since seen several reports emerging which highlight much of the same take. It is not as clear-cut as saying if United don't get a deal done this summer, then any future deal is impossible. But there is the side of this which leers towards Brighton refusing any sale this summer to any club because they are simply unprepared for his replacement. And with that, surely it's advisable to break bread early and attempt to facilitate future plans. That is what I've been told since last week, and it remains the same today. Now, that's not saying the club has not seen any move outright declined. As per the best of my understanding, they haven't. And that is why we've seen Fabrizio Romano state that an official bid was imminent yesterday. But I'm told that Brighton have not issued a valuation, so the club is essentially working in the dark. And for those reasons, we're told that any deal is deemed incredibly difficult, and key decision makers have already accepted this. He is viewed as a dream signing and one who could catapult Amram's midfield into an entirely different conversation. That is why there is such determination to test the waters, and that is why it aroused possibility. And Brighton, as we know, they're very shrewd operators, so they will not be pushed into any unwanted situation. This is why I tweeted what I did yesterday, and as of around 2 p.m. now, it's about 2:05 right now on Friday, I suspect that many more will begin sharing much of the same information. Don't get me wrong, I would be pleasantly surprised if this deal happens, but I just don't see it occurring this summer. And I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news to anybody listening, because I would love him to come, but I just don't see it this summer. And moving away from that, I would like to touch on a topic that has generated much queries towards me this week, namely 3 listeners in Mike Reed, Thomas Barron, and longtime contributor Param Submaranian. Now, without specifically reading the 3 questions, because they all veer towards the same outcome, the guys want to know how I feel about the group of elders in the dressing room and the role they need to play this season. So, thank you kindly, gentlemen, for your time and contacting the show, all 3 of you. It's much appreciated, as always. I think this topic has gone under the radar quite a bit, with so much focus on the incomings and the inevitable outgoings from the club. Players like Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw and Casemiro are often attributed to conversations about high salaries, aging profiles, and the necessity to move them on for younger names. Now, at this point, I would like to emphasize the importance of ignoring fictitious avenues like FIFA or a football manager, although I am still an avid supporter of the greatest game of all time in Championship Manager 0102. And instead, I'd like you to focus on the importance of a veteran in the dressing room, the undeniably crucial role that they play. It's why a man like Johnny Evans is so important, and why the aforementioned trio are invaluable at this stage of the rebuild. Not only can all 3 offer more than enough on the field of play, but what they can provide in the dressing room through experience, knowledge, and the battle scars they have. It's an invaluable role of an arm around the shoulder to younger names like Aidan Heaven and Lenny Yoro, for example, and encouragement during times of adversity, particularly in Maguire, who has shouldered the public burden on more than one occasion. Every dressing room requires these type of players to add a sense of know-how amongst youthful aspirations, a calming voice during difficult periods, and a tone of aggression when the manager requires a bit of assistance in getting his point across. I mean, furthermore, not only can a fully fit Luke Shaw provide an elite level of performance, but Maguire will often play instead of De Ligt in carrying the ball out of central phases and landing into the midfield pivot of Amram's system, while Casemiro, as we know, is the definition of tried and tested. So much focus has landed on Baleba and what he can offer, and while I agree it would be phenomenal to land him, this is anything but a certainty at this moment in time. In response, it appears unclear if we move for an alternative instead of waiting for next season for a move for the Brighton player. So what do you then have? You have somebody like Manuel Ugarte, who has become the poster boy for abuse. He's going through a difficult integration from last season with several high-profile errors, and we saw a worrying performance during pre-season. So when you take that, how critical can somebody like Casemiro be in aiding his positive start to this season? That sort of stuff is without question. And the Uruguayan has nothing but respect for his Brazilian teammate. There is a lot to be said about the desire of youth and the flamboyancy in an attractive young unit. But the calmness, world exposure, and minutes gained and pride of a veteran option in the dressing room is beyond important for any successful team. Truthfully, I actually wouldn't be surprised if all 3 of them start on Sunday. I mean, thinking back on it, I've picked 2 of them to start already, and I wouldn't be surprised if Harry comes in for De Ligt from the start. So I feel it's imperative to embrace what this trio can and will undoubtedly offer, gentlemen, because for me, there is no price that you can put on experience in a dressing room, particularly at a time when we require stable minds and cohesion in the dressing room, the training field, and out on the field of play. And finally today, Karen Mathers has got in touch via email and has 2 questions. She says, "Hello, Mr. Connolly. It would be great if you could include me in your latest show. Firstly, how do you believe we will get on this Sunday? And secondly, what are your hopes and projections for the season ahead?" Well, Miss Mathers, it would be my pleasure to include you in this show. As I've touched on already, I believe that we will win on Sunday, and I think we will see a statement performance of sorts. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but I feel that there will be so much drive and determination to hit the ground running that we will witness those passages of well-coached interplay. In terms of this season, I would like to think that we can start resembling an Amram system, and that is one that entertains supporters and competes in every outing. Realistically, if everything comes together and we witness that cohesion within the side from the very start, especially within the attacking trio, I feel that we can outscore plenty of sides. With that said, a 15th place finish is still the prominent factor that many of the squad needs to overcome. I would like to think, as I wrote in The Observer this week, that a 5th or 6th place finish is not out of the question, as long as these players realise their potential and their ability as a collective unit. So I'll stick with that. I'm looking for a return to European football with a nice cup run thrown into the mix, because there's no reason that we can't see that given the extra time to be had on the training field. We know that Amram has the support of the hierarchy, but we need to see an immediate improvement. And you can call me naive or you can call me being passionate because it's pre-season, but I just genuinely feel that we're going to get just that on Sunday when Arsenal arrive at Old Trafford. And on that, I shall say goodbye to you all this week. Once more, a thank you for your growing support throughout the summer. I must say it was a pleasure to supply a regular football podcast during times of no activity. And I'm truly delighted to see the continued growth within the Theatre of Red community. The platform has gone from strength to strength. So if you haven't already done so, be sure and like and subscribe wherever you're listening. And please leave a review to help us grow even more. I'd like you all to get in touch on the socials at theatre_of_red. And be sure to check out the website for daily uploads with everything from long-form feature pieces to exclusives that we receive from Carrington. So until next week, stay safe. And when I speak to you all next week, I very much hope it is over a fantastic 3 points earned at Old Trafford. Up the Reds.